From the moment of our first breath, seeds of pain and contentment scatter through our developing psyches. Some eventually take root while others wither. In my life journey, the seeds that grew the deepest roots, my shadow selves, came from pain, sorrow, and fear. They bloomed into dark stories I told myself, stories I held on to as my truth. The cultivator of my shadow self, my mother, was a troubled soul wrapped in anger, depression, and irritability. She lacked the ability to nurture. When I refused to breastfeed from her during our first face-to-face, she told the nurse to take me away. That newborn baby didn't know how to latch on. Mother saw that as rejection. What ensued progressed into an antagonistic relationship that defined much of my childhood. Mother reacted with irritability if I moved too much or made noises with my mouth. If I misbehaved, her rages drove me to seek shelter inside myself. I grew fearful of displeasing this giant, terrifying figure in my life. Her attempts to teach 5-year-old me to play piano ended in an outburst of screaming when I didn't understand instructions. And when I once showed her my drawing of what I imagined as a beautiful princess, she said, "I can see you'll never be a great artist." These experiences diminished my self-confidence. From the seeds they sowed grew the story, I am not enough, and I believed this. Because I never trusted my mother completely, I didn't always accept her understanding of things. She was an atheist. She didn't see the need to provide me with any kind of religious training. When I wanted to go to Bible school with my Christian friends, she said I couldn't because I was Jewish. She never explained what this meant, and I didn't ask. My friends shared what they learned in their religious training, but when asked, Mother dismissed my questions about religious beliefs. I didn't accept all her answers. I secretly said prayers at night, sowing some positive seeds that would one day germinate into a journey of spiritual seeking. Please understand, my maternal parent was not evil. She did try to be a good mother, but it was so hard for her. Admittedly, I never truly understood the demons that flew about her head. Her inability to love and guide me as I wanted led me to fear trusting others and to doubt self-worth. My mother was most maternal when she read to me. The love of books and education, one the universe right. A new seed planted itself within my being, a developing imaginary world where salvation myself in a safe fantasy world. I did grow up with 2 parents. My father, gentler than my mother and more comfortable with sharing love, became my safe place. But the relationship between my parents grew toxic. The marriage eventually ended in divorce when I was 9 years old. Before the divorce, my sister and I often hid in our bedroom to drown out the screaming bouts that became more and more frequent. Being a child, I blamed my mother for the divorce. I didn't understand the mutual immaturity of these 2 people. In my mind, she who screamed the loudest deserved the brunt of my anger and resentment. I shrank deeper into myself. After the divorce, my mother's depression grew. She spent much time in bed while my sister and I relished time together. I began inventing interactive stories for us to play. Stories in which we traveled to distant realms and defeated imaginary foes. I didn't realize at the time that caring for my sister nurtured my own inner child. With effort, a fractured child can mature into a whole and healed adult. Anais Nin, a French-born American writer, once wrote in a short poem titled Risk, "And then the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." In our lives, we endure many transitions, the largest being adolescence. How does one navigate those often stormy waters? My stepmother, a psychologist, once told me that adolescence is the only time when mental illness is normal. My parents' relationship became extra toxic when my father decided to remarry. Mother's jealousy and anger when my father attempted to cut final ties somehow caught my sister and me in the middle of their warfare. Emotional storms raged within me as I also navigated the path from childhood to adulthood. My stepmother helped when parents couldn't, and I made it to the distant shore. I wrote the following poem, which expresses my journey through the troubled waters. Why, asked the child with her saucer white eyes. Why, she asked again with expectation and amazement, and she ran here and there, zigzagging through her expanding consciousness, singing the playful melodies of the young, touching and tasting, hearing and seeing, and breathing in all the flavors of her universe. Sometimes she shrank into a corner, overwhelmed by her perceptions, and sometimes she expanded, nearly bursting, as she tried all at once to capture every experience within her grasp, until finally she had explored all the contents of her child's world. Oh, said the child with anguish in her voice, she tried to return to the safe, warm spot at the center of her universe, but I don't fit there anymore. Why is that so? And a wave of consciousness swept her forward into unknown waters. She raged and resisted. She tried in vain to swim back to familiar shores. With frenzied strokes, again and again, the struggle played out, each time pushing her further away from the warm sands of her youth and closer to some vague, misty spot on the horizon. Soon a new shore emerged from the fog. The child found herself struggling less as she moved toward this new destination, until finally all the pushing forward came from her. She reached the new land, which was strangely familiar. A young woman stood tall and alone on the beach. Oh, she said, I am home. My adult self has learned that a healthy inner landscape, a safe home, lies neither in darkness nor in light, but in the merging of the two. I am learning that the dark stories I told myself now push me toward happier ones. They compel me, for example, to see all the ways I am indeed enough. As a mother, a wife, a retired teacher, a storyteller, and a spiritual seeker. I use my mantra, I am enough, over and over to remind myself to keep that shadow whole. My sad inner child, who thought she was unlovable, searched for a way to complete that story. As an adult, when I became a wife, a mother, a social worker, and an elementary teacher, I began to understand the two-sided nature of love. To receive love, I needed to learn how to give love. Every act of giving had a reciprocal component. The loving eyes of my husband, my children, my students told me I was indeed loved and lovable. The frightened child who feared conflict felt compelled to be a people pleaser. I'm learning to listen more to my own needs, and I can say no sometimes when necessary. I attempt to resolve conflicts peacefully when they arise, and when I don't, I forgive myself. Deep breathing and repeating, I am enough, help me to remember when I forget. I am grateful to my mother, not only for her shortcomings that led me to seek a better understanding of myself, but also for her love that I didn't see completely until she lay dying. I often visited her in the nursing home during the final months. One particular day, I arrived with the very book, Winnie the Pooh, that she had gifted me for my 6th birthday. I said hello to her. Her eyes opened, and she gave me the shy smile of a child who's greeted by an unknown adult. I leaned close, touched her pale face, and said in a louder voice, "It's me, Francie." Her face lit up with unmistakable joy. As I looked at this frail body, I wondered how this once fearsome person had become so fragile. I smoothed her hair, and she rested her hand on mine. A new emotion rushed through me. I said to her for the first time in my adult life, "I love you, Mother. I love you." I'm going to start to cry. "I love you too," she said. "I always have." Then I read to her. It took 3/4 of my lifetime to find completion to this relationship. I'm so glad it happened before Mother died. We brought closure to our relationship. Our sad story merged into light and love, the yin to its yang. I am grateful for the ways negativity has pushed me into the light. Thank you, shadows.